Hello, my dear Franken friends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen. How horrible of you to join us. Curl up, invite your friends, and by all means, make sure those lights are out. That way it's harder to tell what may or may not be lurking around you. There's nothing like a good mystery, am I right? Tonight will feature a singular tale of devilish design curated by those wicked weavers of woe. And without further ado, allow me to pass the reins on over to our vivacious voiceover virtuoso Trey Falco for tonight's sinister story. Please keep all limbs and side covers at all times. We wouldn't want anything to go missing now, would we?
So recently I was transferred to the operator's room in HQ. Essentially, I'd sit in a room with a lady who served as backup for various guards who found themselves in situations they couldn't resolve. Most of the situations were your run-of-the-mill cases, where guards had drunks trespassing or being unsure if they should investigate certain sounds, etc. There was only one call that I witnessed which stood out to me. It was late at night and we got a call from a guard who was stationed at a private farm. Whenever a call came through, I'd put on the extra pair of headset which would allow me to hear the conversation. Here's the transcript of the conversation. "This is HQ, what's your situation?"
Yeah.
"This is Mark from the Spencer farm. There's a guy standing in front of the barn. I can see him on the camera." "Alright." "He's been standing there for 2 hours now, and I first thought the camera was frozen, but when I zoomed in just now, I could see his fingers are moving. He's tapping them nervously on his thigh and... Hold on. Wait. His head seems to be twitching slightly." "Is he armed?" "I can't see from here. He's facing away from the camera, but I don't see anything in his hands." "He's standing on private property. You need to warn him to leave right away." Yeah, I'll do that right away." "Stay on the call while you do so and tell me if you need backup." 5 minutes later, we heard the guard's voice over the call again. "Sir? Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" There was a moment of silence. "What's going on over there?" "He isn't responding. He's just standing there and twitching. His twitching is getting more and more violent. I think something's wrong with him." "Get him off the property." "Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to..."
Sorry for the interruption, dear listener, but I just had to remind you. If you're enjoying this series, then make sure you head on over to Amazon and pre-order the book from this talented author, Tales of a Security Guard, set to release on January 30th. Seriously, take the time to pause this video and go give it a look-see. Without these authors, our vivacious voiceover virtuoso would be picking pennies out of the couch to feed his family instead of narrating these amazing stories. At least now he has a hobby. I mean, would you take that away from him? I didn't think so. Not only does it include the 12-part series that you're watching right now, but it also includes the Night Guard series that we've previously narrated on this channel, and more terrifying tales to fuel your insomnia-induced night readings. And while you're at it, make sure you head on over to their Facebook page, Scary Stories with BB, to keep up to date with everything that they're doing. And I'd also like to mention that this author is not our sponsor, nor have we been paid in any way to bring you this message. No. We here at Spookyou just want to remind you, our listeners, that the authors behind these wonderful stories need to eat too. And not only that, but they do deserve to be compensated for the work that they do. That about wraps it up for this break, so back to your story. There was a loud scream coming from the guard. The operator pressed him to respond what was wrong, but the guard kept screaming and panting on the line, followed by the sound of frantic footsteps. There was a sound of door violently shutting and shuffling before the guard quieted down and tried to calm his breathing as much as he could. "Mark, I need you to talk to me. What's going on?" The guard's voice came through in a whisper.
Can't talk. He's right outside. By this point, I'd already called the intervention unit, who said they would arrive on the scene in 10 minutes. Mark, can you get somewhere safe? Backup will be there in 10 minutes, but I need you to hide. Can you do that? I'm inside a locker. He's just standing outside the security room. Something's wrong with his face. What do you mean? It's all wrong. It's like it's sideways. His head is normal and all, but the eyes, nose, and mouth are all flipped sideways. I think he's calling my name. Oh God, he's coming inside. There was the sound of a door slowly opening and then a set of slow and deliberate footsteps. Mark's breathing became stifled as he tried to steady it, probably clasping a hand over his mouth. And then a voice came through, a raspy voice which sounded as if the person on the other end had something stuck in their throat. Mark, it said. Mark's breathing suddenly became more violent, and then he started screaming and begging for his life. The call ended, and the operator and I stared at each other in disbelief. The intervention team arrived on the scene soon, and there was no trace of Mark or the man that attacked him. The camera feed showed Mark approaching the man, who then turned around to face the guard, and then Mark running back to the security room. From there, the man followed Mark to the security room, taking slow, unsteady steps, twitching along the way. He opened the locker where Mark had hid himself, and then the camera feed cut out. On the frames where the man was facing the camera, I could see his face clearly, and it was exactly as Mark had described it, as if the man's face was rotated to the left by 90 degrees. A pair of eyes staring blankly sideways at the top of one another, and a mouth which looked like a smile, but was instead just a crooked slit. Mark was never found again. My next story is going to be from another intervention unit member. He was stationed at some experimental facility and didn't want to share any details about its location or nature of the experiment because, as he said, more than his job would be at stake. He spent about 5 months there with his unit and never saw any action. The regular security guards like me were taking care of the mundane problems like trespassers, stuff like that. However, his unit regularly had drills in case of any emergency scenarios, and he said the drills were not the typical military kind, but that there were some rules they needed to follow, which pertained to not getting into any kind of physical contact with civilians. Their main objective in the worst-case scenario was to seal off all exit points. And sure enough, one day an alarm sounds in the facility and he and his team get ready to start their mission. As they made their way through the facility, they ran into various dead scientists and other staff members. And then they ran into a survivor, a researcher, all bloody and scared. He raised his hands and begged them not to shoot while the unit just kept barking orders at him to keep his distance. The researcher kept saying that he's not infected, whatever the hell that meant. And as he stood there, eyeing everyone, all of a sudden he snarled, showing rows of sharp teeth which were not there a second ago. And then he lunged forward, tackling one unit member and sinking his teeth into his face. The guy told me they started shooting long before he even lunged, but it was as if the researcher didn't even react to the bullets. He was riddled with holes and bled, but just kept biting and biting until he finally just fell over. He tried to jump again, but died a second later. And the unit members emptied their clips into the now dead scientist and proceeded to leave the facility, leaving their one dead team member behind. Once they secured the facility and locked every exit point, locking the potential survivors inside, they contacted HQ and a bunch of armored vehicles with military personnel and hazmat suits showed up. The unit was dismissed from the facility and warned not to talk about any sensitive details related to the experiment, names of staff members, etc. And no matter how much I pressed him, he refused to tell me more. The final story in this post, which I'm going to share, is from a guard named Tom who worked in an office building. Before he got sent to work, HQ gave him a 1-week training. He was strictly forbidden from talking or making any kind of vocal sounds while working in the office. Communication with his partner by talking was forbidden too, so they had to use hand signals. Upon arriving on his first day, Tom saw people doing their everyday jobs at their desks, typing away but never, ever talking. They wouldn't even look at him, but would instead stare at their screens all day. Tom followed HQ's instructions and conducted his duties, not talking to anyone. But one day, he brought his cell to work because he was bored. As he made his way through the office, someone started calling him, and the song, which was set as his caller tone, blared in the office. He quickly turned it off, but then realized something terrible. All eyes in the office were fixed on him. The people had stopped typing and working and just stared at Tom with an expressionless face. Tom mumbled shit to himself, and everyone in the office unanimously said shit in a synchronized tone. Tom slowly made his way out, and as he went through the hall, he saw through the glass the people were still staring at him. Not only them, though, but everyone else in the office stared at Tom as well. He locked himself in the security room along with his partner, and eventually the people returned to their normal, talkless work. The next day, Tom was fired for bringing his phone to work and potentially putting himself and his partner in danger. He said it's a good thing, too, because he had planned on quitting.
Welcome back, my darling deviants. Well, tell me, did you enjoy that twisted tale? Of course you did. I knew you had that air about you, that hunger for the horrific and the macabre. So, did we spook you? If not, then file a complaint with our complaint department detailing all accounts of non-spookiness you found in this video, and we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 millennia. Give or take a business eon or two. However, if you've enjoyed what you've just heard this evening, then make sure you leave a like on this video and annihilate that subscribe button. Such a small act of obedience is exactly what we need to put the food on the table around here. There's only so many days we can have refried kidney and toe jam hash before I'm absolutely sick of it. Spoiler alert, that ship sailed long ago. Now, I must bid you adieu. I've many things to take care of, and this outro is eating into my day off. Run along now. Have no fear, we'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you another terrible tale. Go forth, my ghastly gang, and stay spooky.